Inuits have 96 words for love. Can you imagine their confusion then at hearing an English speaker say they love hamburgers and their spouse? It would be preposterous, unintelligible. Throughout our experiences in different types of school, language is a key component of education and a vital part of understanding culture and communication. However, because not everybody speaks the same language, using multicultural education can help ease the burden so that foreign students can learn in any language. All of us in this class are in the United States public education system. Most of us have attended the United States public education system through primary and secondary education. We have all probably encountered at least one English language learner student. Think about how they were treated in the classroom. Did they get an alternative learning plan, or were they taught as though they've known English their entire life? In my case, the English language learner student was not treated any differently in the classroom. For study hall, he had a paraeducator help him translate, though. These students are thrown into the classroom and receive little support throughout the day. Why is this? I grew up in rural Nebraska, mostly white communities. In school, we didn't really touch on Black History Month even. Multicultural education didn't exist. For those learning English, it made it difficult to learn and figure out what was going on in the classroom because they don't have much to relate to. The only multicultural education I received in my Spanish class was Dia de Muertos, the Day of the Dead. Other than that, multicultural education was non-existent. It made sense to us. 99% of us grew up the same way, in a Christian white community. In class, we discussed schools with the La Raza program. This was one way the United States public education system was making their education multicultural. However, even that got shot down. I believe the majority of public schools in the United States do not have multicultural education, leaving gaps in our education. While some schools across America do a great job at teaching multiculturalism, there are a lot that do not. For those of the minority cultures, this makes connecting to what they are learning in the classroom difficult. We need to bring multiculturalism into the classrooms in the United States, as the United States keeps becoming more diverse.
From classic American classrooms in the U.S. to American classrooms on military bases, multicultural education and language is used differently. As a military child, most of my childhood, about 8 years of it, was spent overseas rather than in the U.S. As such, my early education years, grades K through 6, were on military bases in Germany. On bases, we had your basic English taught classes such as English, science, and math. But once a day, every day, we had a German class to go to. In these classes, we were taught not only how to speak German, but also taught the history and culture that Germany had as well. These classes, though they were only 50 minutes once a day, helped not only with school, but with life outside of school as well, because we knew the basics of the language and culture, which thus allowed us to communicate with our neighbors in German towns that we lived in. From there, we were able to bond with our neighbors more closely because not only were we learning about their culture in our schools, but they were learning about ours in their school as well. And then we were able to help each other learn and grow. When moving to the U.S., I was disappointed in the lack of multicultural education and language opportunities there were. I wanted to continue learning the language and culture of Germany, but there weren't any classes offered until high school, and being in 7th grade, that would leave a 2-year gap where I would forget most of what I had previously learned. Even though I wasn't able to continue on with my education, as it had been in Germany, my childhood and education there has helped me immensely since then. I have learned to be patient and understand others who aren't similar to me in culture and language. It has helped me to want to connect with them more and learn with them rather than just get annoyed because they aren't like me, and is a valuable skill in history I will never forget. Multicultural education and language shouldn't be used as a method to help others integrate into a new society, but as a method to help everyone grow and connect with those around them, because America isn't just one culture and one language.
expected, the amount of attention paid to multicultural education in the classroom varies from place to place. As we can see from previous examples, it could be great in one country like Germany on a military base and not so great in US classrooms. And the same sort of idea pertains to places all around the world. For example, I'll never forget the first time that I walked into a Russian classroom in Russia. Not a single word of English was spoken in the entire 6 hours I was in class for the day. The teacher talked about Russian holidays, made Russian jokes, and referenced Russian literature. Throughout the class period, I was not familiar with a single thing that was happening. After studying in this environment for almost 6 weeks, my language skills had hardly improved at all. If anything, I was less confident. The lack of connection between my home culture and the culture I was learning in was hurting my education. Fast forward 3 more months, though, and I am now in a classroom where we combine Russian and American culture to learn the Russian language. I have gone from being able to sort of understand how to and order food in a restaurant to being able to easily hold a full conversation with a native Russian speaker about something as complex as politics, which just kind of goes to show that multicultural education matters. In this class, we have spent a lot of time talking about and reading about multicultural education, and the ways that following those 7 characteristics listed in the first chapter of Affirming Diversity can help a student retain their identity and culture while getting an education. Multicultural education can help overcome language gaps as well. In relation to language, one of the most impactful items on the list that Affirming Diversity talks about would be that multicultural education is important for all students. It's incredible how much a difference making the lesson important to all of the students is. For example, I taught in Peru a few summers ago, and all of the students spoke only Spanish. They had never heard English before, so I started with trying to teach them the alphabet. What better way to start than with the alphabet song, right? Unfortunately, I was extremely wrong. They had no idea what the alphabet song was. And after a few days of trying to get it to stick, it was clear that this tactic wasn't working. The idea was so foreign to them and therefore unimportant, no matter how badly they wanted to learn English. Not everything we tried failed, though. What was interesting about teaching was that one of the songs that was the biggest hit was Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes. These kids knew and loved the song in Spanish, and teaching it to them in English was almost scarily easy. The majority of them remembered the body parts in the song after only a few repetitions, and I think that this really goes to show how important it is to create a learning environment where language is respected and culture is used to help facilitate understanding. Just as that first example from Affirming Diversity says, multicultural education needs to be important to all students, and this is a great example of that. Also, as Riable and Nito put it in their article, Beyond Categories, one way might be to envision multicultural school communities as cultures of commitment. These are associations of diverse individuals that cut across national, religious, ethnic, and other identifications, but are united by a common purpose and a shared project and vision. Although this article was not talking about language use, I think it applies really well to the example that I'm creating, and I think that examples like Peru help to show how this is applicable. However, any classrooms I've experienced abroad, whether that be Russia, Peru, or Hungary, just to name a few, fail to attempt at becoming multicultural, and it is harmful to students, as we've seen in all of the examples that we've provided for you in this podcast.
While American education may not be multicultural everywhere we go, there are ways we can improve multiculturalism. From stories overseas, we can learn how to make our curriculum easier to learn, regardless of what language we speak. If we relate our curriculum to cultures, many cultures, it will be easier for all students to learn. Abby talked about learning the ABC song versus head, shoulders, knees, and toes. She related the English song to something they already know from their culture, and it made it easier for students to learn the new language. Alyssa talked about the importance of learning about other cultures inside and outside of the classroom. This can spark interest in the new culture environment the student is currently living in.
If we as educators understand the importance of knowing other cultures and languages to help ease language learning, then we can make that process easier for all students. It's our duty to understand as much about culture as possible and do our best to accommodate students from foreign cultures. All three of us have experienced different types of schools, and we have all come to understand how important language is to education and survival. However, we have also all experienced the positive impact of using multicultural education to compensate for language differences. Using a multicultural approach could even hopefully help an Inuit student learn that in English you can love a hamburger and love your mother, and it doesn't mean the same thing.